Hi there. Thanks for joining me. I'm Bill Brio, and you're listening to Brio TV, the podcast. Listening and watching. This is a special video and audio episode, so look for it on YouTube channels under Bill Brio. But listen, if you grew up in Toronto in the 1970s, as I did, one of your heroes has to be John Candy, whether you saw him on the Second City stages or, on TV, on SCTV, in films like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Uncle Buck, or even at Argo games, where he was a co-owner of the Toronto Football Club with Bruce McNall and Wayne Gretzky. The guy was just tremendous. He was really Johnny Toronto. And that's all part of this documentary. Now, John Candy died of a heart attack at 43 in 1994. But he's celebrated in this John Candy, I Like Me doc, and it's on Prime Video on October 10th. And really, do not miss it. It's fantastic. Film features a who's who of comedy stars, including Tom Hanks, Colin's dad, who co-starred with Candy in the film Splash in 1984. I happened to be in line at the Mount Pleasant Theater seeing that year, and just ahead of us in line was Eugene Levy, who's in the film. So that's a memory that was kind of cool. Now, others who are in the documentary, we've got some great testimony from people like Bill Murray, who struggled to find something to complain about when talking about Candy. He did finally find something to criticize. And also Dan Aykroyd, who... those are two guys you just can't get on the phone. They're really hard to book. Reynolds talks about that. We'll hear from him later on how he just barely managed to squeeze them in at the 11th hour. But boy, was it worth it. They're both very insightful. Others who we see in the doc, Conan O'Brien, he met him when he was at Harvard. Catherine O'Hara, she did the eulogy, and it's a tearjerker. When you hear it in the doc, have Kleenex handy. A lot of other people who worked with him at Second City and on SCTV. So without further ado, who you're going to hear from now is two who called him dad. And I'm talking, of course, about Jennifer Candy Sullivan and Christopher Candy, John Candy's children. Obviously, you've seen the documentary already.
Yes.
I watched the screener yesterday, and I think I cried for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yep.
It's incredibly moving, and I just wonder your reaction to the. I can't imagine an assembly of people I admire more than the people who talked about your dad. What's that like to hear all of that from those people?
It's emotional to hear it all. Like you said, you cried for hours. It's like, I think every time we watch the documentary, just the opening bit, I'm already crying.
Yes.
You just have all this emotion, and then you see all of our dad's friends and our friends and family come together and just talk about our dad in such a positive way, but then in also a real way. And it was just how he was. And I think it's very emotional, and it brings a lot of smiles, but it brings a lot of tears.
And like you say, it's so genuine.
Yeah.
And it does seem like this is an extended family for you. You must have grown up with Andrea Martin and Catherine O'Hara and all of those folks. I mean, that must make it mean even more, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, to have everybody participating in this and seeing everyone again, and then also getting the opportunity to really have them talk about him in a constructed interview. It was like getting, while we were working on it on set, like a 2-hour-long personal podcast hosted by Catherine O'Hara that day on our father, and it was really unique and beautiful.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I think it starts with Bill Murray struggling to find something nasty to say about your dad. There must have been something else nasty. He must have made you get up too early or something.
No, there were moments. He still was a dad. There was like, do your homework. It's like, why are you late? X, Y, and Z. Clean your room, make your bed, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You must watch shows now like Only Murders in the Building to see Martin Short and things. Well, what would your dad be now? 75? How old would he be?
75 or 76.
Yeah. You must think, he'd probably be on that show now, right?
Yeah.
Does that cross your mind when you're watching films?
I'll watch that show all the time, and I'm like, oh, Dad would have been great on this. There's, I think a long time ago, when celebrities were getting on sitcoms, like Jim Belushi had his sitcom,
yes.
and everyone was doing sitcoms, and everyone would go, oh, this would have been your dad's next step, and all that. And you watch Marty and Steve do Only Murders with Selena, and you're like, he definitely would have been a part of that crew.
Fit right in.
He would have fit in perfectly.
So funny.
Yeah.
Now, besides all these celebrities, you must meet just regular folks who, and I'm sure a lot of them, when they realize you're John Candy's children, have a story or just wanted to talk to you about it, right? What are those encounters like?
I had this one that I've shared before, but it still sticks out for me. I was in the back of an Uber going to the Hollywood Bowl maybe in Los Angeles, and the driver was talking about how he worked on Uncle Buck and he was a stand-in, and he said, I've worked with so many crappy people in this business, but it was a really good guy. That John Candy guy was really good.
And he didn't know who you were.
And he didn't know, and I said, well, that's so lovely to hear because I'm his son.
What was his reaction?
He was blown away.
Yeah.
But it was in that moment where there was a test of his credibility and his way of working with people.
I've been in sort of a situation like that. I've been in a cab, or I was a driver for a production in Chicago, and he'd apparently in another life was working for John Hughes for productions. And the stories just in that cab from the airport to the set, funny story. And they all loved your dad.
Yeah.
But pretty wild times, too, back in Chicago, right?
Oh, it's Chicago back in the, 80s and 90s.
Yeah, no kidding. But do you have a film of your dad's that maybe you think is underappreciated or deserves a little more discovery?
Oh, that's a great question. I always love his work that he's done in, I think if you go revisit the SCTV stuff,
Right.
I think that's the best way to do it, because a lot of people are so familiar with Saturday Night Live and modern day sketch.
Yeah.
But when you look at SCTV stuff and how influential it was, we grew up around it. And as a kid, I always thought it was just this wacky comedy show. I thought his movies were much better. As I've gotten older and have really begun to study and love comedy, you see how they built sketches, and they're just really intelligent and really funny.
Yeah.
They show Yellow Belly in the documentary.
Yeah.
It's Conan O'Brien's favorite skit.
I
It's
know.
so outrageous.
It's outrageous.
It's very, very outrageous.
When you were kids and we on the set, did you ever see your dad in costume as Godzilla or?
I saw him dressed as Peter Pan, as Divine. Like, that was...
Yeah.
What would that have been like? How old would you have been?
I would have been, 2, 3. Like, I was
And you remember it?
That I remember, and I don't know if I remember it from remembering it, being personally there, or from photos. But I have photos of me being held by him. Like, it's like it's ingrained in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But it was normal. It was so normal to see him with like triple D breasts and blonde, flowy, glittery hair and sequins.
Yeah.
It was great. And I think it was just, and I always loved seeing our dad in character.
Or as Orson Welles.
Yeah. Dr. Tongue. It was, his hair slicked back and,
When you were kids, did you do the 3D?
Oh, to this day, I still do 3D. It's whenever there's something coming right in you here. Documentary coming out right now.
That's hilarious. We'll have more with Christopher Candy and Jennifer Sullivan Candy right after this brief break. Time once again to check in with Emily Gagne at Hollywood Suite. And Emily, it looks like you're sitting out in a pumpkin patch.
You're right, Bill. I thought this was the perfect place to announce that Shocktober is back on Hollywood Suite, and it's better than ever.
Okay, well, what do you got for us?
Well, we've got something for every member of the family, tricks and treats of all decades, of all sorts. We've got lighter fare like Edward Scissorhands or Jurassic Park, but we also have some really spooky stuff like The Evil Dead or Peeping Tom or Jordan Peele's Us to really delight you.
Okay, give me one of your favorite Halloween movies.
I'm going to say Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which we do have on Hollywood Suite. It is the only entry in the Halloween franchise that does not have Michael Myers, and it is a wild time, so I highly recommend watching it this season.
All right. Well, there you have it. Shocktober, all month on Hollywood Suite. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Bill.
Here they are again with more memories of their dad, John Candy, Jennifer, and Christopher. Well, how did it come about? Why 2025? Why is now the time to tell this story, do you think?
It was just the time at which it took to get the project made.
Documentaries are taking a long time,
Yes,
so we've been working on it for quite a while, so it just luckily happened to be 2025.
And were there things that you really wanted in this documentary? Was there stuff we make sure we do this or that, or?
We had just wanted to make sure that this was the documentary for him, that we looked under every rock and we were able to tell the human story of John Candy. I think a lot of the documentaries in the past point to a dark side, or they brush over some of the heavier lifting that a documentary has to do. And the intention of this was to really spell it out for the audience. Yes, he dealt with anxiety, but this is actually maybe where it started. And this was maybe the trauma that he dealt with or the pain he was going through, to help you understand that. And that was important for me.
Yeah, because everyone would always assume it's like, oh, well, he smoked and drank and did the obvious. It's like the obvious. It's like, well,
but why?
But why? It's like the root of it. It's like, yeah, everyone in America has some sort of, bad habit. And so in Canada and it's just it's human nature to have a bad habit. But what's the root of it? And
well, it works brilliantly, because I didn't realize that his father died when he was on his 5th birthday.
Yeah.
And then it does spell out everything that comes after that, and why. You look in his eyes and could see that hurt in certain instances he could draw on. It certainly made a lot of sense. And you mentioned at one point toward the end of your dad's life, when he had this anxiety, he did seek some therapy to kind of talk about
Absolutely.
that. And just talk again, you found that as actually a good example for people now today to see that and see it in the documentary, right?
Yeah, I think it spoke to his perseverance and his curiosity to problem solve. And he found himself in his own corner in his mind, and he said yes to someone offering him a therapist's number. And he worked with that therapist for some time, and he also helped get us on our journey. And now we live in a time where a lot of people are more than happy to talk to a therapist or seek help in whatever capacity that needs be. There isn't one right way to do this, but I think if there's one broad message of the film, it's to be okay with speaking your mind.
Yeah, it's okay to ask for help.
Talk a bit about the Argos. Did you guys get to go to Argo games, I guess, get in the booth, or were you too young at this point?
Oh, no,
we were
there. Definitely. Love the Argos.
So, I mean, you got to meet Wayne Gretzky, I guess, and all these other folks. What was that experience like? I mean, there's that beautiful moment, and I've heard this story before, where Dave Thomas and I guess Dan Aykroyd are up in the booth, and they're realizing, oh my God, he is Johnny Toronto. You would have been there for that, I guess, right?
Yeah, we would have been. I remember that game, actually.
I do. It was either the home opener, but it was one of the big games that everyone was there. Yeah,
it was the opener.
The opener where the Blues Brothers performed at the opening game, and it's just surreal, and it's great. You're kind of looking at.
You're also young enough too, where you know that Wayne Gretzky is like the biggest hockey player.
Yeah, of course.
In the NHL. So you're not an idiot. You're kind of like, you're like, oh wow,
this is great.
Yeah. So there was that sense with a lot of his friends
it was a big deal.
This was
we weren't naive to that.
Not so excited to meet Bruce McNall, but
Bruce McNall was a really important guy to our father, and
sure.
He started off great with where we were there, and he got our dad to the hook. They bought the Argos.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I asked what was the most the film that should be discovered. You mentioned go back and watch SCTV. Obviously, you probably have a favorite film. Or the other thing, when you were kids, you must have, and I'm not sure how old you would have been, but my kids are 35 and 33.
Okay.
And we watched a lot of The Rescuers Down Under.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that must be what a wonderful way to discover your dad through an animated children's as a soul, right?
Well, of course, my son has seen it. My son's almost 6.5, almost going on 7 years old, and
Right.
that's like we show him, Rescuers Down Under and all the kid appropriate,
Right.
John Candy movies. And come to find out, that was one of my husband's favorite movies was Rescuers Down Under. It's like he didn't see a lot of my dad's movies growing up because his family wasn't so much into watching movies, but he's like, no, I watched, Rescuers Down Under and Cool Runnings, and those were his
Right.
favorite movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting to see the different age group of and introducing movies, like parents introducing kids to movies and what they choose, and through animation. He did it all, Candy. So it's like he did every medium.
Yeah, no kidding. Do the same favorites or in terms of...
I love Rescuers Down Under.
It's a great,
It's a sweet film.
talk about an underrated film that I think
Bob
needs
Newhart, right?
Yeah, you guys
Come
got to
on.
be resurfaced.
Yeah.
But Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is
Yeah.
just the classic, and we had such a fun relationship with John Hughes.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see their work just, on all, 8 cylinders cooking. It's
Yeah.
a beautiful film.
You must be excited for tonight. There's going to be the premiere of the Toronto
Yeah.
Film Festival. It packed Roy Thompson Hall, a lot of
Yep.
people in the house. That's going to be proving,
Yep.
I imagine.
I am not wearing mascara tonight.
Yeah, and but you've already seen the film, and you probably watched it being created over and over. And
Yeah.
Definitely.
did you get any feedback from Colin Hanks and Ryan Reynolds about the direction of the film or what their feelings were about your dad?
I think we were all in lockstep in knowing that we wanted to go to, some more places. I refer to them as heavier lifting, a little bit more explanation. But Colin did a great job of saying to me one day, we want to celebrate his life. So we want to make sure this is a complete picture. And that's really important. And that was a great takeaway for me. This is the perfect telling of our father.
Yeah, and we chose Colin because we trusted him with our dad's story, and it was also creating a documentary where we can kind of give it over to him and be like, okay, we trust you with this. This is our our input, but we want to have it come from someone else's eyes too, because we're so close to it. We want to make sure that the story is
That's a good
told
idea.
clearly,
Yeah.
because we don't want to sway it. Like there's no, it's just be like, oh, he's great. But it's like, there needs to be an outside perspective. And I think it's important that you have someone that you trust. And I think Ryan and Colin were the perfect pair to do that.
There must have been many people who would have wanted to have directed this, right?
And there has been, and I apologize for that. And it was just it also was the timing for us. It was just didn't feel right. Like we weren't ready emotionally, or I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
But also realizing I don't think there's ever the right time. You just kind of have to jump in and dive in and do it, and then be like, okay, this is either going to work or it's not going to work. And, everyone will either love it or not, and that's okay.
When we come back, more stories about John Candy, this time from Colin Hanks and Ryan Reynolds from the John Candy press conference in Toronto. Jordan Tutu's life has been predicated on his determination to rise above the pressures of being the first Inuk player in the NHL, addiction, and tragic loss. Watch the story of this former NHL enforcer in Tutu, a Canadian original premiering exclusively on Super Channel starting Friday, October 24th. What else can you see on Super Channel? Well, here are some exciting scenes.
The one thing that you're going to have to remember is to protect your quarterback, me.
What do you think about being a soldier and a father?
I hope that being good at the one makes me better at the other.
There's a strict hierarchy in ancient Egypt, and the pharaoh is at the top.
And therefore they have divine authority. They were totalitarian.
Can I help you?
Word on the street is you need a sous chef.
No offense, you don't look like a sous chef.
And what does a sous chef look like?
For starters, they never have a manicure.
I'm building something. The Lightwave Surf Company. We'd be selling an idea of paradise.
Okay, welcome back. Now off we go to that Toronto press conference held at the Second City's Theatre Stage. And this is featuring Colin Hanks, Ryan Reynolds. The first voice you're going to hear is George Stroumboulopoulos. He was moderating the session. Here he is.
So let's just start with this. Why this film? Why now? And how did you get to be a part of this?
Ryan called me up and basically sort of said, I don't want to live in a world where there is not a documentary about John Candy. And I said, I think I agree. I don't want to live in that world either. And then he said, I think you should direct it. And I said, wait a minute, stop. And we ended up just having a lovely sort of conversation about if we were to do that, like what would that actually be? You know, because I feel that, you know, insert famous historical person and anyone will say like, oh, you should make a documentary about that. And it's not necessarily a wrong instinct, but what does that film actually look like? What is the story that you're actually telling? So we had a very lovely conversation that day.
And I do want to live in this world now.
Thank you
very much.
Yeah. And basically I said like, well, if you're comfortable, like give me some time and let me sort of noodle it a little bit. And at that point I reached out to Chris and to Jen, whom you know, we've known each other for a while. And I said, Ryan Reynolds, is this legit? Do you approve? And they said, yeah, totally. Please do it. And so that was sort of the initial
prefer Errol Morris. But you know, that speaks to you and Ryan, Colin. We kind of knew each other a little bit, just
the social media world talking with Chris. And
we'd met early enough, and you'd done that really beautiful video that you put out on your Twitter account at the time, and it was it went viral primarily. It was the first time there was some major activity about our dad online. And I think that was
instructive, though.
Yes.
But you saw how people really grabbed onto it.
They grabbed onto it. It was a great little snippet of what a documentary, full-length documentary could be.
And so, I think that kind of started percolating, and that's when the sled started going down the hill.
Yep.
Right. And aside from wanting to live in a world that has this kind of film, what made you think that you were going to be the guy that could help pull this together, Ryan?
Well, I've always been obsessed with John, and I've always loved him so much. And the reasons why are a little bit like when filmmakers, you know, sit at sort of these awards functions and the theme of their movie seems to change from function to function. But the theme of why I love John changes and morphs, but I realize it's actually just kind of evolving a little bit. And John really kind of, to me, represents togetherness, joy, not punching down. John was a good person when no one was watching. And I think that that's a beautiful thing when we live in a very curated world right now. I mean, I would argue way too curated. You know, John was around and moving through the world before any of that. And he just left in his wake this kind of a kindness and a joy, and I think having more. For me, it's nostalgia too. I think nostalgia is the greatest drug on earth, and you know, John had a way about him that really brought people together, and still does to this day. I look at, you know, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and that performance of Del Griffith. I believe that would be nominated for an Academy Award if that were to come out in this moment today.
Did you meet John on Splash?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have very, very vivid memories of meeting John. In fact, one of the first times I remember being on a film set was on Splash. Was John, my dad, and Eugene with the arm and the cast and the neck brace. And so I have very vivid memories of John. And in fact, I have a handful of them because he was around for a few years there between Splash and volunteers, and I remember exchanges that I had with him, and I don't remember a lot of exchanges that I had. Macaulay Culkin sort of speaks to it in the film, but he had this way of, even if you were a young kid, he made you feel important, he made you feel special, and John made everyone feel that way, for whether it was a director or a co-star or just someone on the street, and so just that even little personal connection I had was sort of unique enough that I remember going like, oh yeah, that's right, I had that same experience.
There's a really powerful moment where Macaulay Culkin talks about how his father had turned into a bit of a monster, and John was one of the first ones to recognize it.
I was on a Zoom with Macaulay before he'd done the interview, and we were just kind of, it was an informal pre-interview, but it wasn't even a pre-interview. We were just talking, and he said, there's moments in the movie, where, John he'd come to set, and John would say, how you doing? And Macaulay would say, I'm fine, I'm good. And John would stop him and really say, no, this is a lot. How you doing? How are you? How you handling this? And he just felt so seen.
And Reynolds talk about Macaulay Culkin, who is 45 years old now, if you can believe it. He was one of the two little kids in Uncle Buck. I had an opportunity to speak with Gabby Hoffman, who was one of the other little kid, and she was in Transparent at the time. I interviewed her in New York, and I asked her for a John Candy story. She gave me a doozy. I wish I had that tape. Can't find it. Maybe you don't have it, but I do have the transcript. So I'm going to read it. And this is what she had to say about working with John Candy. I just really, really loved him. He was such a sweetheart. Everybody says that of him, but it's true. He just had the biggest heart in the world. I remember John Hughes, who was the director of the movie. He wasn't that nice to me, and I had a simple question about a scene, and John Hughes just totally ignored me. I just remember John Candy came over and he put his arm around me and whispered in my ear, what are we doing? Let's figure out what we're doing. And he just saw that I needed a little something, and he was always right there, and he was very affectionate and obviously really funny, and we loved him, but he was really sweet. He was a real sweetheart. So there it is. More proof if anyone needs it. John Candy was the best, even when Reynolds says, when nobody was looking. So we'll be right back after these short messages. Have you been watching NCIS Tony and Ziva on Paramount Plus? Anthony Tony Donazo Jr. is a former NCIS special agent played by Michael Weatherly. Yes, he's a charming, sometimes comedic, often flirtatious guy. Ziva David, played by Cote de Pablo, first appears as a Mossad liaison to NCIS and becomes one of the core characters despite her burdens from the past. Together, the Tiva storyline is one of the most beloved and slow-burning in NCIS history. Catch up with Tony and Ziva as they take their act to Europe, where, between all the banter and bickering, they continue to take on the world in this new series. And remember, there's a mountain of entertainment on Paramount Plus. Welcome back to one more clip from that John Candy I Like Me press conference. As mentioned, many of Candy's film and comedy colleagues were happy to take part in this to sing his praises. However, not all of them were easy to reach, as producer Ryan Reynolds explains.
Did anybody say no?
No. Nobody said no, but there was, I mean, look, Bill Murray's not easy. I mean, that's
hard to get.
He
said no, but he definitely didn't say yes.
Yeah, I know he didn't say no, but he didn't say yes. My kid got him. I think in the end, I sent him a desperate plea. It's desperate when you switch to video for a message, where I'm like, Bill, I'm running out of time. Of course, existentially, because death will find me someday. But I'm also running out of time on this doc, and I was lying. I wasn't running out of time. I'd run out of time 2 weeks ago. Like it was over.
That is true.
And my kid woke up. My 2-year-old son woke up at like 11:30 at night to show me his Jingle Bells shirt. And then I said, I'm in the middle of it. I'm trying to send a video to Bill. Tell Bill to do the interview. And he went, do the interview, Bill. Like all angry, and I said, well, you say no to a child like that, and I don't know what kind of monster you are.
That's it.
And the next thing I know, he was doing it, and I promised that the child would not attend, and he would be neutralized.
Ivan Reitman once told me that when they set up to shoot Stripes on day one of the shoot, they still didn't know if Bill was going to do the movie. They didn't know if he was going to show up that day.
That was even pre-fax, because there was a while where you just faxed him and to get him to do a movie. This was carrier pigeons, or I don't know,
different era,
sort of a Paul Revere kind of thing.
You and I grew up in Canada, Ryan, so we know that the wall of influence, the waves of influence from other countries. For a while, it was the UK and, of course, the United States. SCTV had this enormous impact on us because it was Canadian.
Yeah.
If you think it is so, why do you think it is important for us to tell the stories of who we are as Canadians and Canadian stories?
Well, because I think Canadian stories are distinct in so many ways, and they're not distinct because they're not American. That's the thing that people sort of fall for. New Zealand, sure. I mean, we're not Australian. I get it. But Canada is got its own kind of culture, its own kind of vibe. I can meet a Canadian even if they're hiding their accent, and I know you're from somewhere, probably Regina, maybe Moose Jaw, but definitely Saskatchewan. There's something there that is a camaraderie, an ability to kind of laugh at oneself. To me, it was something I utilized everywhere and every chance I got. You still see it in guys all the way up. Dan Aykroyd, very proud Canadian. John was an incredibly proud Canadian, as am I. And I remember when I meant to see Dan Aykroyd, who was another, not a no, but very hard to find. I mean, a couple months. Yeah. And I finally get a hold of him. And he goes, I'll tell you what, kid. You're going to fly up here. You're going to you have dinner with me. You're going to spend the night. Next morning, we'll do the interview and you get the fuck out. Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. And
sounds like a horror short right there.
It does. And it was one of the best nights of my life. I was at his home, and he picked us up at the airport in his 1994 Lincoln Town car. I think he stole it from Grosse Pointe Blank, one of my favorite movies, and drove us to his place out in the woods out there in Ontario. And next thing I know, I'm driving around in his 1920 Pierce automobile, which was amazing in and of itself. But just his entire home is just like a museum. Just incredible, and so gracious. And just wanted to make sure everyone was comfortable. Very, again, Canadian, right? Just is everyone comfortable? Had to check the shower in every room. I mean, we were a film crew of 4 at that point. Colin was shooting, so I got to do 3 or 4 of the interviews where he did the other 97. But I did get Dan and I did get Bill, and those were thrills for me. Yeah.
Brandon Benitez, journalist, asks, how did you aim to capture the spirit of Canada while telling John's story of his life and work?
But John is the spirit of Canada. You don't have to look for that. I mean, I think it's a mistake to try to, it's a rookie error. Even in a scripted film, you listen to the movie and the movie will speak to you. Sometimes it'll yell. especially if you're prepared. You know, if you're prepared, you'll really hear it. And John's all over it. I think you'd be better qualified to answer that question. I think John is the spirit of Canada.
I mean, look, I'm the lone American here, but I can sing "O Canada," both versions, and I can name all of the Canadian football teams, including both Rough Riders.
Oh, wow. Great. Wow.
So I am
the space and without the space.
Correct.
Honorary.
Correct. So I feel honorary in that way. For me, here's the thing. For me, it was a non-issue. John is John. John is Canadian, Canada is John. It's all part and parcel. It's all the same. And so the only thing that we needed to do was just showcase who John was. And everything would come from that, everything that would follow. And so if by any miracle someone sees this and says, wow, this is the spirit of Canada, this is it, that's all because of John.
Well, there you have it. Do not miss John Candy, I Like Me, when it premieres October 10 on Prime Video. It's a lovely documentary, and have a box or two of hankies handy. I'd like to thank the folks at Prime Video Canada for setting up the interviews with Jennifer Candy Sullivan and Chris Candy, and as well as providing such terrific video and audio of the interview. Thanks to my producer, Phil Hong, and please look for the upcoming documentary, I Like Phil. Also, I'd like to thank the guys who did the music for these episodes many years ago, the Crispy Critters themselves, BJ Del Conte and Paul Boudra, along with piano man Stephen Dudley. Finally, thanks to you for watching and listening, and if you like this episode, please subscribe to the video channel at YouTube under Bill Brio, and also leave any likes and comments or anything like that. It all helps, so appreciate it. And I'm Bill Brio. Thanks for listening.